I've been fortunate enough to own quite a lot of nice cars in my time. Hot hatches, convertibles, sports cars. I've even had a couple of quite high-end luxury GT cars. Classic cars too. But there's one car that always sticks in my mind as being a little bit of a surprise to me. I can't really tell you why I bought it. I can't really think of the reason why I decided to go and buy it. But I'm glad that it did, because it's one car that really sticks in my mind as being a real surprise of how much I really liked it. And that car was a 2005 BMW X3 3 litre. I really liked that car, and I've always liked the X3, and now there's a new one. Welcome to this week's road test review. Welcome to the new BMW X3. Please sit yourself down, make yourself comfortable in the house of cars. Now, before we get started on this week's road test review of BMW's new X3, it's time for me to get a little bit cheeky with you. I do have some subscribers, but that's not enough. I'd like a lot more. So if you're not already a subscriber to the House of Cars channel, would you please consider becoming one? And once you've done that, make sure you press the little bell button that's down below. Why do you do that, I hear you ask, Brian? Well, you do that because then you'll get notified when the next video is uploaded and it's gone live. Once you've watched it, if you enjoy it, and I hope you do, then of course give it a little thumbs up, and don't forget, leave me your thoughts in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think about the cars that we review on House of Cars, such as BMW's new X3 and of course on the House of Cars channel as a whole. Now, the BMW X3, would it surprise you to learn that despite the fact that it was about to be replaced, in 2023 it was BMW's biggest selling model globally? Not the 1 Series or the 3 Series, the X3. And since it was launched back in 2003, BMW have shifted over 3 million of the things. So it's a massively important model for them. And that third generation car cemented what had gone before. I mean, BMW literally invented as horrible as the term as it is, the sports activity vehicle with the X3, very much a road biased sort of like 4x4 SUV, and it really focused on bringing BMW attributes to the road cars. But that last generation car, you could have it as petrol, you could have it as diesel, you could have it as a hybrid, you could even have it as a full-blown M car. So given the number of cars that they sold and given how popular it's been, this new one, well, it's got quite big boots to fill, hasn't it? Now, before we move on, as usual, let's take a brief snapshot about BMW's new X3. Well, it's the 4th generation of BMW sports activity vehicle, and it still sits upon the multi-powertrain CLAR platform that its predecessor did. The car comes with all-wheel drive as standard. 4 powertrains will initially be available in the UK, a mild hybrid 2-litre petrol, a 2-litre turbo diesel, a plug-in hybrid petrol model, and the M department fettled M50 6-cylinder petrol model. 2 trim levels are available, the X-Line or the one we have here, the M Sport. And prices start from just over £48,000 and rise to nearly £67,000 depending on the engine and trim level chosen. Now, in the 21 years since the X3 was first launched, it's fair to say that there's an awful lot of cars entered into this marketplace, and there's an awful lot of good cars in this marketplace. So can this 4th generation X3 really advance the model forward to make sure that the X3 stays as popular as it always has been? Well, let's stick it through a House of Cars road test review and find out. Now, as always, we're going to start with how the car looks, which, let's be honest, with a modern BMW isn't always a successful chapter, is it? Let's be honest. However, given how successful the X3, given how important the model is to BMW, they can't take too many chances with this. They can't afford to alienate people, and I don't think they have. I think BMW have turned a bit of a corner when it comes to their design, folks. I really do, because I think this is quite a good looking car. Yes, it's still a BMW, yes, there's still elements that are maybe slightly controversial for some people, but on the whole, I think we've got a good looking vehicle here, folks. Right, let's start at the front. There's 2 trim levels. There's the X-Line and there's the M Sport. The M Sport is probably going to be the most popular one in the UK. And of course it gets its more kind of blacked out trim. The X-Line gets a bit more silver trim round it, of course. You've still got the double kidney grille, but instead of all the veins going up and down in it, now you've got the centre ones that go up and down, and then the side ones come in at a diagonal slash, which that's quite interesting. I quite like that. The one thing that does bug me is the off-centre camera. It always has. I don't know why they do that, why they don't put it in the middle between the two, but they stick it on one of the grills there, and it's not that neatly integrated. It's like a little wart on its nose. This panel here is obviously for your front mounted radar guided cruise control, and then there's more cooling down at the bottom, and again that sort of like that valley is almost runs down there. Now I've just come away from having a BMW iX3 as my long-term test car in Auto EV, and it had a lot of black trim around the front because it was an M Sport. It's toned down on this car. They really have toned it down, and I really like the way that they've done with it, and as I say, it's much neater and it's a bit more palatable, dare I suggest. You've got these new L-shape lights in the main lamp unit there, so of course you've got your twin lamps there, but then you've got the L-shaped DRLs which run down there, and I really like that. And the one thing I do like as well, with the double kidney grille just sort of like bleeding up into the bonnet, it gives it this almost like power bulge, these two nostrils either side, where you've got the valley that runs down the centre there with the big BMW badge nestled in between them, and I do like that. There's another nice line that comes from the top corner of the grille and just sweeps up into the bonnet and goes all the way up into the A-pillar and just gives the bonnet more of a definition. Again, I'm not a big lover of these kind of frozen matte finishes, but this frozen grey, works well on this car. I hate to say it, folks, I think we've got a good looking BMW, and I never thought I'd be saying that for a long time. Now as we go down the side of the car, you can see the surface work is all quite flat. There are no real big slashes and creases in it. Again, it doesn't make it controversial at all. You've got a nice strong line that runs along the shoulder, and you've got again these nice contoured squared off wheel arches. There's no gloss black wheel arch extensions or anything funny like that, just nice muscular sort of like haunches. Depending on trim level will depend on the wheel sizes you get. Now they start at 18s as standard, obviously in the base model go up to 19s or 20s depending obviously on the trim level you get. In terms of the vehicle size, okay, so it's only slightly longer than the car it replaces. It's 34mm longer than the car it replaces, but BMW have actually dropped it by 25mm, and it gives the car, they've widened the track as well, and it gives the car a little bit more of a kind of lower, sportier, more aggressive look on the road. But it's only available as a 5-seat car. There's no 7-seat option that you can get in this car, but then you can't really get 7-seat options on its main rivals, which are things like the Audi Q5 and the Mercedes-Benz GLC. Nice door mirrors obviously on the side there, with again a lot of tech. You get your side your indicator repeaters mounted into the door mirrors, and of course you get some cameras down in there to help with the 360-degree parking. M Sport badge there if you've got the M Sport trim, as you would expect. And then as I say, obviously you get things like privacy glass. Roof rails are standard on it, they're gloss black on M Sport, as you would expect. The same with the pillars as well, and then it all extends back into this lovely sort of like extending roof spoiler that goes right over the rear glass. Red brake calipers on the M Sport as well, which is lovely to see. I do like that, and I do like these wheels as well. They'll be a bugger to clean, but they're really nice. And flush door handles now as well. So again, good looking car from the side. So we've only got the back to contend with. Have they messed that up? No, I don't think they have. I think we've got a good looking BMW, folks. I really like this car. I think it's a really handsome car. I think they've done really, really well. They've taken what's gone before and they've just sharpened it up, made it a bit more modern looking. It's difficult to convey in film, but when you're next to the car, the surfacing work and the way that the glass sort of like then merges into bodywork and panel work is quite interesting. You know, ways some of the panel fit, it's very clean, it's very sharp. It's all those little details that, as I say, it's difficult to convey in a video, and it might be difficult when you see it in a brochure. But when you go to your local dealer, just have a look round it, because they've done really well with this, I think. The rear roof spoiler, as I say, it's got this nice sort of like just dipped bit in the middle here to help with airflow over the back of the car. Obviously got a rear wiper, which I like. Your centrally mounted BMW badge there, and then of course you get these sort of like almost T-shaped rear lights that bleed into sort of like the rear hatch as well. Low set number plate, a diffuser obviously down the bottom, depending obviously on the model you go for. Now I've got the 2-litre petrol model here. I thought I could have had an M50. There's M50s at launch here, which have got the exposed exhaust pipes. But this is going to be a big seller, I think, this 2-litre petrol model with a mild hybrid in the UK. So I thought it was important to do to review this particular car. So you don't get the exposed exhausts on these, but they exit out, sort of like at the side of the apron. You get your little reversing camera there. The only downside is this gets quite dirty, as you can see, because of the sort of like the more bluff rear end. And the tailgate release is underneath there. Now you can do it from the key, obviously, but I just think that's a bit... I would have had it as the badge, with the old badge used to sort of like, you know, do that. But irrespective of that, I think what we have is a really good looking car. What do you think? Do you agree with me? Do you have one of the older X3s? Have you not bought an X3 because of the way that it looks? Have you not bought a BMW because of the way that they all look? Would this now tempt you into a BMW? Would you have this, or would you have a Volvo XC60? As always, let me know in the comment section down below. All right, let's talk about practicality now, because your boot space is 570 litres of boot space. Remember what I said, you can only get it as a 5-seater, so no 7-seat car. If you want a 7-seater with a BMW, you have to move up to an X5 or an X7. But 570 litres of boot space that's on the car. If you fold down the rear seats, which are split into a 40-20-40 split, that takes total capacity up to over 1,700 litres. So a good usable size of boot, I think. There's also a tiny little bit of underfloor storage, not much, but there's enough for things like your load, your net that you can get up, and there's a first aid kit in there, and there's a few little accoutrements. So, you know, if you're using the car on holiday, you go into France, you can put your Warren triangle in there and your high-vis jackets and stuff like that underneath there. Of course, there's enough for your little artisan picnic basket, as you can see there. The other nice thing with it is a completely flat load entry. So whilst, you know, you've got to lift suitcases up into an SUV, the load entry point is flat. It's straight in. You know, it's just above the number plate. So it's just sort of, you know, just about my kind of height, of just between my knee and my thigh. And I'm only a shorty, so it's not too bad in fairness. You can also have it with a electrically operated deployable tow bar. I forgot to write down what the towing weights are, but I will put them down in the bottom there, because if you're a caravanist or you're towing trailers or whatever you might need to know, I'll put them down below. I'd suggest probably the diesels probably might be the one for that, but I don't know. But certainly you can have the electrically deployable tow bar. You can also have, you've also got the ability to sort of like to have a power takeoff in the boot as well. So if you're, you know, got a cool box or something like that you're trying to, charge up or whatever, or you got sandwiches in and all the rest of it, then you've got that. There's these little hook there that comes out from the side. However, you do have tie downs at the back, at the sort of like at the end of the rear seats there, and they have got them at the, sort of like the very backs of the seats. But what it doesn't have is the ability to fold down the rear seats from the rear of the car. You've got to go in the side of it to put the rear seats down, which is something a lot of the rivals now have. You know, they've got the ability to knock down the rear seats from the boot space. So maybe that's a little mark against you there, BMW. But on the whole, a reasonable sized boot, probably not best in class, certainly not the worst, and enough for most people's needs. And obviously if you need more, because of the roof rails, you can add on bike racks and roof boxes on top. So yeah, decent size for the car that it is, I would suggest. One thing I didn't mention when I was talking about the styling, and I mention it a lot in reviews that I do, whether it's House of Cars or Auto EV, especially with SUVs. What I do like is when a designer looks at the door and thinks we could wrap that round the sill, you can cover the sill, especially if you're in an area where it's a bit dirty and you're getting in and out with light coloured trousers or a floaty skirt, you're not dragging them across a muddy sill. X3 doesn't have that. The doors do stop at the sills, which I do find a little bit disappointing, BMW. My Genesis GV70, the doors go right down. Anyway, by the by, what's it like in the back? Well, let's have a look and see, shall we? It's all right, isn't it? Now, that's my driving position. I'm 5'8", so I appreciate if you've got a 6-foot driver in there, that's going to be slid slightly further back. But I've got enough space, more than enough space, to sit behind myself in the car and get my feet right underneath the seat, cutouts for my knees, and there's these storage nets, though they feel quite loose. They'll get saggy quite quickly, I think. But there's certainly enough foot room, there's certainly enough knee room. Headroom is good as well. Now, this particular car has the panoramic roof as well, which floods the cabin in with light. So even a car that's got a dark interior like this one, it doesn't feel claustrophobic back here. Now, that's helped in part by the seats, which seem to be raised slightly. It's almost that stadium style seating, so you get a good view out from the back, which is excellent. What I also like is the outer two seats, the way that they're sculpted on the backrest, they feel really supportive you know, it's not often you get that sometimes, but they feel that they've really got a good bit of shoulder support there. Obviously, if you're the third person who's got to sit in the middle, it's not so good for you because you've got a bit of a flat area here and a transmission tunnel to bear with. But for two in the back, absolutely fine, I would say. As long as they're not, you know, great big basketball players sitting behind another basketball player. Excuse me. Right, what else have we got storage-wise? Oh, we have got a fold-down armrest with two cup holders, which is rubber-lined in the bottom, so things don't rattle around. I like that. There's also door bins, which are shaped at the front for water bottles, and then they've got a little bin behind them for your frutellas. So that's also very, very good. You've also got these little things here that obviously slide open. Now, there's also accessories you can buy to clip in there, you know, for like iPad holders or for coat, you know, coat hangers or whatever that goes in there. So that's got those too. Ventilation, yep, you've got two face vents down in the centre here. You've also got a heating and ventilation screen there for adjusting temperature and such like. And we've got two USB-C ports back here for the children so they can charge their devices because they don't like talking to their parents. They'll have to spend their time on their phone or their iPads and such like. There's also, on this particular car, these here, the sun blinds integrated into the door, which my daughter loves. Makes her feel really cosy inside. So, on the whole, what are we looking at? Well, I think we're looking at a really nice interior, as long as you're not expecting masses of space back here. But then again, if you were, you'd be buying probably a bigger car than the X3, you'd be buying an X5. But for four, absolutely plenty of space, you know, in terms of two children or small adults back here. There's enough headroom, the good visibility, they've got a lot of, sort of, you know, a feeling of openness back in here. They've got enough storage, and as I say, remember, you can fold that middle bit forward so you can get a longer load through. If you've been to the DIY store and got some shelves, you can still carry two passengers in here. So on the whole, what we're looking at is a bit like the boot space. Others have more, but in terms of class, absolutely ample. No need for anything more than that, I would suggest. Right, now I've spent 6 months driving an iX2. It was my long-term test car over an Auto EV. So this is very familiar territory to me, and I really like the interior of the X3. They've brought it up to date like all the other models in the range. So what we have here is what looks like one singular screen that goes across. It's actually two. I think it's a 10-inch screen over here in the driver information, and then the infotainment is a 12-point-something-inch screen, okay? And it's operating system 9 that we're now on. But whereas the iX2 was all touch screen, the X3 still gets the iDrive controller, which I do like. I do like being able to use it. The only thing I will say is, if you're using Apple CarPlay with its icons, it is designed more to be touch. I mean, it's still touch. You can still use it as a touch screen, but it's easier to use Apple CarPlay as a touch screen with icons rather than use it with a cursor to go through it. Okay, so that's the one thing that I will say. So the fact that it's both is actually quite good. If you're like me, you just go straight on to CarPlay. Right, and you can see across here, you've got all your different apps that you can go through. And it seems at first there's an awful lot to look at there. But you can actually narrow it down by these shortcuts. So you've got infotainment, vehicle, recently used, and digital premium, which I'll talk about in a second. So you can actually narrow it down depending obviously on what you want to go to. So if you want to go straight to, I don't know, the vehicle settings, you can just go to vehicle and it brings only the stuff that's relating to the vehicle up on the screen. It doesn't bring everything up, okay? So that's that. And obviously what you can do as well, you can just go through using obviously the controller as well, or you can just go straight to the screen itself. Okay, so that's there. It's very easy to use. It's probably one of the best in the business in terms of what's available out there, especially in this market space. So I do like what they've done with this here. When you move across to the driver display, again, it's the same. There's a lot of information at first to take in with your eyes, but you soon learn to sort of like narrow it down. But you can also change the view as well. So if you use the button here, you can change its layout. So you can bring it all in, you can widen it out, you can flip the navigation into here as well, depending obviously on what you want to see. You know, you can have your navigation route guidance in there, or you can have it as a map. You've also got augmented reality as well in terms of the navigation, so it'll project what it sees from the front camera as well onto the screen. I spoke about the connected services, and that's things that BMW are now doing. You know, you can cancel, Sorry, it has voice activation. Every time I say the name of the car, it brings that up. So apologies on that. So when you can subscribe to certain elements through, you know, for like music streaming services and that type of thing. So you don't have to have it, but it's set up for it. It's okay. So that's what that is. Good head-up display as well. So your actual driver monitor, if you like, all the things you need as a driver. So your information display here, your infotainment screen, your head-up display, it's all within easy to see is what I'm trying to say, very elegantly. And it's also very easy to use, because if that controller there doesn't work, you can just use the touchscreen. It's not too much of a stretch. Okay, so that is all excellent. This area here has all been redesigned. So you've got wireless charging for your mobile here. We've got 2 cup holders in there, but look at the amount of ambient lighting that you get in the car. This is the first thing that really strikes you. You've got ambient lighting in these kind of V shapes around the door things here, across the strip here, and then around the... There's a lot, you know, but it does give the car quite a nice feel, especially in the darker hours. Plus as well, you get this beautifully knitted, like the Mini has, the Mini Aceman and Countryman now have. You get this knitted dashboard material with this recycled material on it, not sort of like a plastic, and I really like that. That's a lovely touch. That's superb. You get this odd sort of thing on the door here where you can vary it's like a haptic button where you can open and close the vent with varying degrees. I don't think that works as well as BMW think that it should. Cancel. See what I mean? She's a bit overzealous. Plus a lock and button. I'm not so sure on that. I don't know if I like that or not. The other thing that I'm not so sure of, again, is the buttons that are grouped around the controller. They're all there. They are physical buttons, but they're on a haptic panel. So the whole panel moves. So if you go to, say, home, you know, to bring it up there on nav, it's the whole panel that actually moves. It's all right, you know, it's better to have it than not, but it means you do have to take your eyes off the road a little bit more often, dare I suggest, rather than a physical button you can do through feel. You've got to physically look down and see what you're pressing. That being said, there's a physical button for your volume, your gear selectors there. The steering wheel, I've got physical buttons on it, none of this touch sensitive stuff that you get with other manufacturers. You physically got to press them to make them work. And what I do like is to turn the speed limit off on the car, you just press and hold the set button and that turns that off, so you don't have to scroll through loads of screens to turn that off. You've got gear shift paddles behind the steering wheel as well, and of course the column stocks, exactly we expect to find them, and they all work really, really well. Storage is good, as I say. You've got wireless charging pads, 2 cup holders in there. We've got a decent centre bin there for your frutellas, and you've also got nice big door bins, again with the front of them shaped to take a water bottle. The seats, the last thing I want to talk about, which are absolutely superb. They have got just the right amount of support and they're adjustable in every way, including with the squab. You've got a manual slide out squab if you want more support underneath your thighs. So look, on the whole, like the exterior, the interior has had a welcome upgrade. It feels much more modern. It brings the X3 into line with all the other cars within the range. There's a lot of familiarity here if you've been driving, say, X2s or 3 Series now, you know, or i4s or whatever, so there is a lot of familiarity here. And as I say, it just all works. It's well built, there's some nice materials used. There's very little to fault here. Right, time to get technical and talk about engines now. Now the car that I've got here is the XDrive 20, okay, so which is a 2-litre 4-cylinder petrol with a mild hybrid technology, where the hybrid situation sort of like is just there as an assist, as a starter generator and things. It's not to do electric only running. That's the plug-in hybrid. We'll talk about that in a second. 208 brake horsepower is what you get from this, okay, and it delivers it to all 4 wheels via an 8-speed Steptronic transmission. So again, all autos, all all-wheel drive when you go for an X3. Okay, in terms of fuel economy with this engine, you're looking somewhere between 37 to 40 mpg on the combined cycle, depending on the trim level, because obviously it'll depend on the wheel size that you go for. And the same with the emissions as well, which if you're a company car driver, you'll need to know, and they're somewhere between 156 and 172 grams per kilometre. So that's the 2 litre, the XDrive 2 litre petrol, okay? You can get the X3 with a diesel engine, which seems odd to be talking about that in this day and age, but you can. And if you go for the diesel engine, it's the 20D XDrive, and that provides 197 brake horsepower, again through an 8-speed automatic gearbox. Slightly better fuel economy obviously from the diesel, because it's between 43 and 48 mpg on the combined cycle, and your emissions again very similar, 153 to 171 grams per kilometre, again on the combined cycle. Now, you're also going to be able to get it with a plug-in hybrid. It's just started production, so they're going to be in the UK probably start of 2025. And that's a 2 litre 4-cylinder engine, and that's assisted by an electric motor which is integrated into the gearbox. Now, that's going to give you 299 brake horsepower. They just couldn't find that extra horse, obviously. But that does give the car the ability to travel up to 56 miles on electric driving only. So that might be something to look at again if you're a company car driver. So maybe wait for that one if that tickles your pickle. Lastly, for the speed junkies, there is of course the M50, and that is a 3 litre twin turbo straight six, and that thunders out power that's just shy of 400 horsepower, and that'll get the car to 60 miles an hour from rest in just 4.6 seconds. They did have them here today, but you know, and I sacrificed that for the sake of consumerism because I thought you'd be more interested in this one. But yeah, the M50 is the one that you want if you're after a bit of speed. Right, let's get the X3 out on the road and just see if this is, because to me the X3 was always a real driver's SUV. It really was, you know, and that's what I loved about mine. It was such a bizarre thing. I can't tell you why I bought it. I just saw it and thought, gosh, that's a, you know, it was a, you know, good looking car. I'd done a few miles, I'd done over 100,000 miles when I bought it. But it was a 3 litre SE, nicely trimmed inside. It was black, you know, gosh, we took it to Scotland, you know, my wife drove it, and even with the miles on it, it still felt tight. And I think that's why I loved it. We've always had an SUV in the family, you know, we've had XC60 from Volvos, we've had Jeep Grand Cherokees, we've had Land Rovers, but that X3 really drove well. This X3 does nothing to disappoint either. Now, I've chosen the XDrive 20, the petrol model. I could have gone for an M50. There was M50s there, and I thought, oh, you know, have an M50, you know, why not? The lead-footed hooligan in me would have loved to have driven the M50, but I thought, well, whilst I'm sure people will buy them, most people are going to be looking at this style of course. I thought this is better for a review. So, 2 litre petrol, mild hybrid system, 48 volt hybrid system. It doesn't drive on electric power alone. It is there purely just to assist with efficiency and a little bit extra performance. That's all it does. So it doesn't drive on EV only. That's not well. The plug-in hybrid is the one for that. So if you're interested in that, that's a different car. What have we got? 208 horsepower. 0 to 60 in 7.8 seconds. So it's quite sprightly. All-wheel drive is standard. 8-speed Steptronic transmission, which you can adjust, which you can select manually via the paddles on the steering column here. So if you want to shift gear manually, you can, or just let the box do its own thing. You've got this toggle switch down here, this toggle switch on the automatic box. So when it's in drive, if you pull it back one more, you go into sport, and then when you go onto the paddle, it now comes up and says you're in M, so manual effectively. So you've got the ability now to change gear yourself. So left paddle for down, up paddle for upshift. Yep, nice and straightforward. There's 8 ratios to go up and down through. The engine, you can hear it, there's no doubt about it. It's not as smooth as, say, something like BMW 6-cylinder.
I'm not quite sure how to help you with that.
Cancel. I've got to remember not to say the name of the car when I'm talking about it inside because he interrupts me. if you, what was I saying? Yeah, the 2-litre 4-cylinder engine, it's powerful enough, but it's not smooth as, say, something like the 6-cylinder, the 3-litre straight 6 that was in my X3. But as long as you don't extend it too far or ask too much of it, it's absolutely fine. And the performance that it delivers back, I would suggest, is going to be fair enough for, it's more than enough for most people's needs in that respect. Obviously, if you tow, maybe something like the diesel is going to be the one that you're going to look at. And if you, as I say, you're an absolute speed junkie, then of course there's the M50. But this one, I think, is a decent steer. I really do. I like this car a lot. But it's not the engine so much, or the performance, that really stands the X3 apart in this class. It's the chassis. And this is something that, as I say, that's always been present in the X3. They maybe had dodgy styling at times, you've maybe not agreed with the way BMW looked, or the equipment levels they give you, or the cancel, or maybe the poor value for money in some respects. But you cannot deny that their chassis are absolutely top of the class. And what you've got here is a 5-link setup on the rear, which keeps the rear end just nicely tied down. As I say, it's all-wheel drive as standard, so there's a huge amount of grip anyway, but it feels, even if it was rear biased or even just rear-wheel drive, then there would be enough rear end grip in the car not to get you into any trouble in it at all. The steering is beautifully weighted as well. You've got this really nice steering rack, and again, the response that you get back from it, the feedback that it comes back with, is exactly what you want as a driver. It just gives you that nice little amount of feedback. You know, as soon as you turn into a bend, as soon as you turn the wheel, you get a response from the front wheels. You know, as soon as I pitch it in here, I get a nice response. I know exactly what the wheels are doing. It feels like the front end is talking to me all the time, constantly telling me what I'm doing. You know, when you see those police camera action programs, and you've got the high-speed police chases, and the guy's talking you through what he's done. You know, he's having to relay back to control room what he's doing. That's what this feels like. I know it sounds silly, but that's what it does. That's the chassis that just keeps you informed of what's happening underneath, what's going on. The other impressive thing is the ride quality, and that's not something I've been able to say a lot about BMWs in some respects. Cancel. God, that really is annoying. Yeah, the ride quality is good, and this car's sitting on 20-inch rims. But you go into these bends here, these flowing bends, and there's grip, easy to get the power on. There's a lot of steering response back. The steering just weights up nicely at speed. And I'm not even in one of the, you know, sort of like the other driving modes. So this is just how it behaves normally. And the flip side of that is how easy the car is to maneuver. So if you're using it just on the day-to-day, you know, you're driving the kids to school, or you're going to the office, or you're parking in Sainsbury's or Tesco's, it's very easy to maneuver round about. You sit high in the car, but you still sit in the car, if that makes sense. You know, they've got a really nice, sporty sort of driving position that you get with the X3. I'm going to stop saying, I just say X3 now. So you get a really nice driving position with the X3. You feel like you sit in it. But on saying that, you still sit high enough up that you can see all the extremities of the car. So it's very easy to place. You know, and again, whether or not that's in a car park or whether it's on a twisty country road, you know exactly where the car is, you know exactly where the front bonnet is, you know exactly where the extremities are. That makes it very, very easy to get the car into the position that you want it to be. It's also a car in terms of its refinement when you're not absolutely on it, when you're just driving it. You know, like I go up to Scotland to see my mum or my son. The X3 is a car that I feel that I could just sit in and just, you know, churn out a 6-hour drive very easily and very comfortably, because these seats are absolutely superb. The one thing about my iX2, my electric iX2, which I've just come out of it after 6 months in it, that absolutely no other car I think has been able to do that I've had, is the comfort of the driving position. The seats, the way they hold you, the way BMW seats, they've absolutely got the right support down the side of my thighs, down the side of my torso, and I'm not the thinnest of men. You know, I'm short, but I'm tall that way. but they hold me really well. The extra facet that you get with the X3 with the M Sport is you get the slightly grippier Alcantara across the top of the shoulders. If you go for the M50, there's a bit more Alcantara, but it gives you a nice sort of like, you know, it locates you well and holds you well. So even in a bend, you know, you put your foot down sort of like mid-bend and the G-forces want to pull you out. You don't, you stay firm in your seat. It's really nice. The driving position is second to none. I don't think there's a car manufacturer that does a driving position for me like BMW do. I think they are... Cancel. I think they're absolutely at the top of the game for that. There must be a way of turning that off. There has to be. Anyway. Right, we've spoken about the performance, we've spoken about the handling, the ride quality is good, the refinement is excellent. The brakes are another area we've got a real big tick in the box. If I stand on the... Now that wasn't a full powered stop because there's cars around me, but the feel you get from the pedal is one of a really nice progressive brake pedal. It just feels like you've got a proper mechanical setup underneath your foot as you're applying the brakes, and it hauls the car up really, really well. Let's be honest, these are big cars nowadays, these big SUVs, you know, so there is a huge amount of weight to stop, and it just gives you confidence that it will stop. That's what I like. Last thing to talk about is the driving environment while I'm here. As I say, the dashboard layout, I'm very used to this, having had my BMW for the 6 months that I did. Cancel. But there's this new...
I'm not quite sure how to help you with that.
Cancel. Just shut up. Compose. Right. There is this new ambient lighting thing that goes around here. Now, I quite like it. It's all right. And you can choose different lighting, I'm sure. You know, they've got this kind of crystal effect that glows blue in the dark. It's round the doors as well. It's okay. I just don't particularly like this little panel on the door here. I don't know why they've done that. To me, that doesn't work particularly well. It's to control the vent here, and it's also got your two-position memory seat, I think, if you've got the electric seats, which this car does have, where you can have the memory position. But yeah, to use that to open and close that vent, to me, that's a faff. There's a better solution than that, I think, but just not that. But if that's my only gripe in the cabin, then it's been a success. I can see everything falls neatly to hand. The only thing I was saying earlier is, I say, until you get used to where those buttons are, because they're not defined buttons, you do tend to look down when you're trying to use one of them. So for going into, say, the navigation or the telephone or the media, you know, you do find that you take your eye off the road just to see where your finger's going, just for a split second. That would be alleviated with actually defined buttons. So that's the only thing that the company might want to think about. Otherwise, I can't really. It's difficult because I do want to make sure that I cover, you know, I don't want to just sound like an absolute sycophant, you know, when I review some cars. But, you know, when they are as good as the X3 is, and it is good, it's very hard not to sort of like come away, you know, full of praise for it. There are things that annoy me, of course there are. As I said to you, you know, as I say, I'm not sure of this panel here. The voice activation is a little bit overzealous, obviously. The engine can feel a little bit coarse as you extend up through the rev range. Not can be coarse. It just sounds like, you know, a 4-cylinder, whereas, you know, you might like a nice straight 6 if you've been used to driving this Bavarian car manufacturer's products in the past. But, you know, I'm sort of really splitting hairs in that respect. And most people aren't going to... Well, no, there's no point talking about off-road ability in a car like the X3, because people that drive this don't need to take it off-road. They don't buy it for its off-road ability. If you do need a car that goes off-road, then you're not going to buy an X3. You're going to buy something else. You're buying on-road. You're dropping the kids off at school, you're driving to the office, you're going shopping at the weekend, you're loading it up with luggage to go to Cornwall for a couple of weeks, or down through France, you know, to sort of like, you know, the west coast of France and things like that, then it's very, very hard not to come away really impressed with how the X3 behaves. If you put driving dynamics and comfort and refinement at the top of your list for a new car, and you want one of these medium-sized SUVs that has a bit of a sporting bent to it, I'm tempted to say look no further. I really am. It's a really good car, really good. Expensive, but good. Right, let's talk about pricing now. Now, the BMW X3 starts with the 20 XDrive, and it starts from just over £48,000 for the lead-in car. This is the lead-in car, in terms of its engine. But it soon doesn't take long before you're writing out a cheque for a number that's an awful lot higher than that by the time you've added on some options. For instance, this car with the M Sport plus the options that it's got fitted to it is £66,700. So it's not cheap, that's what I will say. That being said, with BMW, you can expect good residuals in fairness as well. That's the one thing I will say. Obviously, if you do go for something like the M50, then that's got a higher starting price. That's going to be starting at £67,000. So it's fair to say you're probably going to be at the thick end of £80,000 for that car by the time you've added some bits and pieces to it. Yeah, not cheap. Right, competitors. Well, the two main protagonists that you're maybe going to compare the car to is something like the Mercedes-Benz GLC and of course Audi's Q5. Germany's big three, isn't it? BMW, Mercedes and Audi. So that's the two cars that go squarely up against the X3. But it is quite a crowded market space. Even if we look at prestige badges, there's still quite a few cars around. Now, of course, Porsche have the Macan, and the Macan is going to go all electric. It's not a cheap car, but of course with the X3 you've got the performance models like Porsche have, and of course you're going to have the iX3 next year, which is going to compete with the Macan electric as well. So the Porsche Macan is another rival to think of. If we head over to Italy now, we've got the Alfa Romeo Stelvio, a really good car. It's just had a little upgrade last year as well, so it's still quite fresh, very sporty, sort of like orientated. And if we stay in Italy, then obviously you've also got the Maserati Grecale as well to think about. Another car that's available with an electric drivetrain very soon as well. Just gone out of production, but there'll still be some stock, I would think, in dealers. And again, a car that I think is fairly a worthy adversary to the X3, which is the Jaguar F-Pace. So, that's a car, as I say, I think that car's going to be missed. That's a big selling car that for Jaguar. And Jaguar, of course, is a brand. I don't know what their real plans are. They're not selling any cars now for the next year or so till they rebrand themselves. But if you can find some stock of F-Pace, that's a car. You might get a good deal on it as well. You're also going to maybe looking at a slightly aging product now, but still a very good car. And I have to say, a car that actually we traded our X3 in for is the Volvo XC60. Brilliant car, hugely popular, big seller for Volvo, and still a really competitive car in this market space. Very prestigious, nice on design, massive emphasis on safety and build quality. So that's a car to consider too. We head across to the east now, and you've got cars such as Lexus with its NX, and of course Lexus big on hybridised drivetrains, albeit not with a full electric model. Well, there is, because there's the RZ450e, but that's not the same model as the NX. But that's the car that's going to compete with this car here as well. And there's Genesis to consider as well, and believe it or not, it's a Genesis that's replaced my iX2 as my long-term test car. So the GV70, which is available with petrol and electrified versions as well. What I'm trying to say is, despite the fact that you might not think there's an awful lot of prestigious badges out there to compete with the car, there is quite a lot in the market space. And that's before we've mentioned other D-segment SUVs from mainstream brands, such as Hyundai with the Santa Fe, Kia with the Sorento, Volkswagen with the Tiguan, and Skoda with its Kodiaq as well. So there's certainly a lot out there for your money if you're considering this size of car for your family. The new 4th generation BMW X3 does nothing to harm the reputation that the previous 3 generations have already built up. Over the last 21 years, this car has not only formed a new category of car, but it's finally honed it and refined it to be a big marketplace where a lot of other contenders are now present. So does the new X3 go straight to the top of the class? Well, let's just say this. If you put driving dynamics at the top of your must-haves, then if the car isn't the top of the list, it needs to be damn close to it, because this new X3 is a formidable new contender in a marketplace that it helped create. Now, of course, next year we're going to see the car with an electrified drivetrain, albeit in a different platform with the new iX3. But until then, I do think we might have a new class champ on our hands. Thank you for watching another new car review on House of Cars. As always, please make sure you are subscribed to the House of Cars channel. Then once you've done that, make sure you then press the little bell button that's down below, because that's the way you get notified when my next video is uploaded and it's gone live. If you've enjoyed this week's video, and I hope you have, then obviously make sure you give it a little thumbs up. And of course, don't forget, leave me your thoughts in the comment section down below. Are you a current X3 driver? Are you interested in a new one? Have we covered everything that you thought that we might? Is there any questions you might have? Do you not like the look of the new car? Do you prefer the old one? Did you not buy an X3 because you didn't like the look of it? Does the new one tempt you? As always, please let me know all your thoughts down in the comment section. Now, if you're a fan of the gram, I'm over on Instagram and it's at House of Cars 1973, so please give me a follow there, because that does help the channel as well. And all that I can say is this: whether or not it's a small car or a large car, whether it's a slow car or a fast car, whether it's an old car or a new car, you'll find them all here in the House of Cars. Thanks again for watching. Thank you for supporting me. I'll see you again soon.